Welcome everyone. Welcome to the parents, the grandparents, teachers who are joining. And it's great to see everyone tonight, and to really, the best way to get together, the best way to connect is through Torah. Torah is what connects us as Jews and as, of course, members of the Hillel Torah community. And it's really, really special to have an opportunity to learn together. When we think about Pesach, Pesach is one of the holidays, one of the Yom Tovim that's the most, I mean, they're all Yom Tovim are highlights for children, but Pesach really seems to stand apart. At the Pesach Seder, the children are the stars. What did you learn? You stand on the chair, you ask the Manashtana, you know, it's all about the children. I think we could all look back and remember from our own childhood, special Siddharim that we had, either with our parents, with our grandparents, with cousins, with a special teacher maybe, and those memories really are imprinted within us. And I think tonight what we're going to speak about is share some thoughts on kind of deepening our understanding of Pesach and the meaning and how we could connect to the Haggadah and to the Yontif, and really thinking also about some tips of how we can continue to even build on the ways that we're already doing our Siddarim and making them meaningful, to make them even more meaningful and more inspirational, both for ourselves and for our children. After all, Pesach is really the holiday where we're passing on the Masorah. This is the moment. It's, you know, the teachers did their work. They prepared the children for weeks already. Now the teachers aren't there anymore. It's just us. It's the parents or grandparents and our children, our grandchildren. And now it's up to us to pass on the Masorah that we have, that we got from our parents and our grandparents, to pass it on to our children and grandchildren. And that's really why this is really one of the most special nights of the entire Jewish calendar. It's where we cement and where we form that deep connection for our children that will live on with them for years and years to come. So I'm going to now pass on the program to our first presenter, and it gives me very, very special excitement to welcome. It's not just, it's, where am I here? Our first presenter, very exciting, is Rav Natan Brownstein. Rav Natan Brownstein is our new incoming Judaic Studies Director, and he's already been working with us behind the scenes this year on some things, and we're excited to have him presenting this evening, all the way from Florida, some insights on the Haggadah. Please, Rav Natan.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hello. Thank you for coming together tonight, as Rabbi said, to learn Torah together and prepare for Pesach. It's nice to meet you guys on Zoom, and I'm looking forward to seeing you, whether it's this summer at Camp Moshe Wild Rose or this coming school year when I join the Hillel Torah community. The other day, I got an invitation to a bar mitzvah. It was a big deal because the COVID restrictions were such that there was a limited number of people, but the dad called me up and invited me, and I was very excited. It was a good invitation because I knew he was inviting me, and I was able to say yes. In Halach Manya, we are also throwing out an invitation. We say, hey, anybody, if you're hungry, come and eat with us. If you want to join us for Korban Pesach and to celebrate Pesach, come join us. But it's not really an invitation. There's no one there to invite. No one's going to hear it. And even if someone wants to, they're not going to be able to come and take us up on it. We're not going outside. We're not putting out a pamphlet or a flyer. So what kind of invitation is it that we start the Seder off inviting everyone who can't even hear us to come join us at our Pesach Seder? And a beautiful idea I love so much is as follows. The difference between being a slave and being free is one thing. The ability to be able to give and do for others. When you're a slave, you are very stressed. Your time is not yours. What you own is not yours. And it's very hard for you to think beyond yourself and your family. Now that we're free people, we move from slavery to freedom. All of a sudden, the stress goes away in many ways. We're able to think about others. And now we can do chesed. The point of Hashem taking out of Mitzrayim, taking all of Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, was for us to be able to do chesed and to do for others. And so that's why tonight, Halach Man, we start off the Seder saying we're going from slavery to freedom. But the point of going from slavery to freedom is that we can now do chesed, that we can now do exactly what Hashem wants of us, to be a free people and to be able to reach out to others. And so I think that something that's could be a great way to inculcate this to the people at your Seder. I'll give you two ideas. One is that there's a lot of opportunities for things at the Seder to do for others. I know in my house, we make sure that whenever everyone's pouring that next cup of grape juice or wine, don't do it for yourself, have someone pour it for you. But you could be for anything. You want to break off your piece of matzah. You want to be able to get the certain things from the Seder plate. Whatever it is, say, hey, I'm not doing it for myself. I'm going to do chesed, even at my Seder, and constantly go and do everything for everyone else. Another thing you could do at your Seder to inculcate this would be to go around and say, okay, we are free people. We live in Skokie, we live in Chicago. We are free people, and we are free to do chesed. What is something that this year, as free people, after we're free this Pesach, we can do for others? And that's another way to go around and take this concept and this experience of going from slavery to freedom and make it real, to say, what am I going to do for others now that I'm free? And hopefully with this, we really make that statement true, that now that we're free, halach manya, we say, anyone who wants to eat, come join us, because now we're free. Hashem made us free in order to be a nation who gives to others. Chag Sameach.
Shekoach, Rav Natan, beautiful, beautiful thought and beautiful idea. And every one of our presenters tonight is going to be sharing a thought along with some practical advice on how to bring that into the Seder itself. So we're going actually in order of the Haggadah. So Rav Natan spoke about halach ma'anya, and I see him in my basement here. I got some matzah behind me. We're getting ready, stockpiling. I'm going to speak now about ma nishtana, and we're going to then move on from there in the order of the Seder. So if you take a look at ma nishtana, when you think about children, ma nishtana is really the highlight, right? It's what they're practicing weeks in advance. They're singing it in the bathtub, maybe, ahead of the Seder. When it comes to ma nishtana, every single child usually gets up and does it themselves, maybe different languages. Question is, what is so important about ma nishtana, and where does it really come from? So if you take a look, it's interesting. If you take a look at any Haggadah, the Haggadah, if you take a look right before ma nishtana, there are instructions. What do the instructions say? Instructions say, now we take the kara, we take the Seder plate, and we pour the second cup of wine. So what's going on here about removing? And on my house, what we do is we literally I take the Seder plate off, I put it in the kitchen or put it off to another table. I try to make a big show of this, like, now we take the Seder plate. I try to get some attention from the people. So where does this come from? So it says in the Gemara in Psachim Kuftet Vavam Bet, it says that we do this Lama Okrina Tashulchan, Armi Deber Vyane Kadeshi Akira Tinokot V'Yashalu, so that the children will see and will ask. And then the Gemara actually tells us a story. Abaye was once at Rabba's house for the Seder. This is a real story. And Abaye saw that Rabba took the Seder plate and took it away. He took away, in fact, the whole table. In those days, they had these small tables. He took away the whole table from in front of him. And Abaye says, why are you taking away the table? We didn't eat yet. I'm still hungry. We're not finished. All I had was a little karpas. We're not finished. Rabba said, Abaye, since you asked this question, we don't even have to say ma nishtana. Ma nishtana? What do you mean? That's the highlight. How can we skip ma nishtana? What you see from this story is that ma nishtana is the set questions, but it's only the default. The whole point of the Seder is to ask spontaneous questions. Why do we remove the Seder plate? Why does the Haggadah tell us to remove it? To do something unusual, to arouse curiosity, for the children to ask questions. Abaye asked the question. That's it. We don't need to do the default questions anymore because you asked a real question, a real life question, something you were curious about. In fact, the Gemara tells us that there's a big difference between the Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim that we do at the Seder and the Yetziat Mitzrayim that we remember every day of the year in the Shema. What's the difference? One of the main differences is Derech She'ila U'Tshuva, that at the Seder, the whole story has to be through questions and answers. So it's not only the ma nishtana. And in fact, it comes from the Torah. The Torah says, Ki yishalcha bincha machar lemor. When your child will ask you, this is what you will tell them. So this idea of questions and answers comes from the Torah itself. So pro tip number one is to make changes during the Seder. In fact, for many people, that's why many men wear a kittel, wear that white kittel. There's many reasons for it, but one reason is just to do something unusual. Wait, why are you wearing a kittel? Kittel is for Yom Kippur. Great question. You just asked the question. Mission accomplished. We dip the karpas, according to many people, also. Something unusual. Why are we dipping before we're starting the meal? The way we set up the table is so special, to make the night as special as possible and even as unusual as possible. In my house, we wear costumes throughout the Seder to dress up and to act out the story. Anything we could do to arouse attention from the kids, that is pro tip number one. And that's really what the Gemara is teaching us, is that we want to arouse the questions. The question is, though, why? Why are the questions so important? Why the focus? And the answer is that truly, in order to really learn and learn in a deep way, we have to activate curiosity. And curiosity creates a desire and an interest to learn and to understand more deeply. It primes the pump, so to speak, for the learner, for the child or the adult. It's not only children who need to ask questions that help us learn on a deeper level. And this night, as we said before, the night where we're giving over the Mesorah to our children of what it means to be Jewish, what it means to be part of the nation of Am Yisrael, to have this special connection with Hashem. This is the night more than any other that we need to arouse their curiosity and make them interested in furthering this understanding. And some people mistakenly think in Judaism, or Orthodox Judaism especially, it's not good to ask questions. Don't ask. How dare you ask that question? How dare you ask why we do this? How dare you question something? And in fact, what the Haggadah is teaching us here is exactly the opposite. Not how dare you, you must ask questions. You may not even fulfill the mitzvah of the Seder if you don't ask the questions. Questions are essential to what it means to be Jewish and to deepen our understanding and our relationship with Hashem. In fact, if you look at the Talmud, the Gemara, it's all questions and answers, the Shak Levitaria. The Gemara doesn't just tell us the bottom line what to do. The Gemara is all about questions and answers and delving deeper and probing until we really understand. I have a sad story, actually, unfortunately. A teacher who used to be one of my teachers in a previous school told me that she was a math teacher, and she told me that she grew up religious. And in school, she would ask a lot of questions, and she was shut down. The teacher said, "How dare you ask these questions?" And she told me when she was in fourth grade, this happened, and it happened a lot. And she was a little bit precocious, maybe. And they shut her down. And she says, that started me kind of going my own way. And to this day, at least, she's not observant. She kind of left the traditional Judaism. And she says a big part of it was that people didn't let her ask questions, and they didn't want to hear her questions. And I think the Haggadah is teaching us here the opposite. Just last week, I had an opposite case. I had a parent email me some questions that their child, actually also fourth grade, was asking about creation. And how could the Bereshit story, how does that fit with the fact that the dinosaurs and the world is so old? And I said, great question. And we looked it up and we were talking about it. We were exchanging ideas about it. No matter what the questions are, we need to encourage our children to be thinking deeply about what it means to be Jewish and to really ask those questions. So pro tip number 2 for the Seder is to reward all questions. And you could announce at the beginning of the Seder, say anyone who, and it's not only children, any adults also, anyone who asks a question at the Seder gets a prize. What's the prize? It could be a candy. It could be a little piece of chocolate. Just don't do lentils, because one year I went to the store Erev Pesach and I bought these lentils and I thought it was the perfect little prize for the questions. And we're giving them out. Everyone's having a great time with the lentils. And then one of my kids says, Dad, I think it's dairy. And the lentils were dairy, but it was okay because we didn't eat the meat yet of the meal. So that was okay. But make sure that it's parav. Make sure whatever the treat you're giving out is parav. So this is the idea. Manashtana teaches us about the importance of asking questions, the importance of arousing curiosity. The tips are we should make changes at the Seder to arouse even more questions beyond just the formal Manashtana. And we should also reward those questions. And it also gives everyone a nice little snack until we get to the meal. We are now privileged to have our next presenter. Our next presenter is Rabbi Scott Babender, who's a first-year faculty member at Hillel Torah. And Rabbi Babender is going to speak to us about the Haggadah Levincha.
Thank you, Rabbi. I will come clean. I'm actually going to start with the Afikomen. I just thought it'd be exhilarating to follow Rabbi Linzer. So I'm going to start off with a little-known halacha about Afikomen, which may come in handy. It could save your Seder the same way that it saved my family Seder many years ago. Question is this: we know that we're supposed to, before we say Birkat Hamazon, the last thing that we taste is supposed to be the afikomen. What happens if you lose the afikomen? So there's a lot of different ways that this can happen. Let's say the person who's hiding the afikomen, they forgot which bed set they put it in the linen closet, the only place anyone hides the afikomen. There's also, commentators talk about what happens if rats get to it, which does not really apply to us at all unless we're hiding it in any West Rogers Park alley. What happened to us that we lost our afikomen was a separate reason completely: sabotage. So I was 14 years old and my parents made the fateful decision. They said, Scott, you're bar mitzvah now. We will allow you to have wine. And I had my friend there. I thought that was pretty cool. And just to be able to have that sweet, sweet, sweet Rashi wine. I think my parents reversed their decision sometime after I was reading the Maxwell House English translation as if I was Gandalf, like, you shall not leave Israel, or something. I fell out of my chair, as kids said back then. I was rolling on the floor laughing. And my parents said, Scott, we think that you're cut off from wine. And even though my friend was there and it was embarrassing, since they're the parents and I'm the child, I accepted what they said. So what actually happened was, as any defiant, slightly tipsy teenager would do, I found the afikomen. It was in the linen closet. I hid it outside under the deck where no one was going to find it. And I think my plan was something like, my parents were going to come groveling to me. It's like, Scott, please, we need the afikomen to finish our Seder. Like, please, if you don't give us afikomen, we'll give you anything. So maybe I was trying to extort them for alcohol. I really don't know what I was trying to do. But there was someone at that Seder who knew this little known halacha, what to do if you lose the afikomen. And he said, the Ramosha Israel says you can use other matzah shmura. You can finish the Seder even if you don't have the afikomen. So I know a lot of you do not have teenagers. Some of you might have children who became teenagers not at 13, but at 3rd grade. I'm full aware of that. But what happens if, with all of these tips and tricks and insights that you're getting from this Zoom session, there's one of you as a child that's just really not part of the program, that there's some breakdown somewhere in the middle and they're just really not following what's going on anymore? What do you tell them? How do you tell something to them that's going to get them back on board with you so that you're able to pass over this message, pass over the Masorah, pass over the idea that they are an integral part of Jewish history? So the question of what can you tell them, the Malbim, a 19th century commentator, says that is the wrong question. It's not about telling, even though most people will translate Haggadah as the telling. The Malbim says Haggadah has nothing to do with telling. It's about showing, like the pasuk says, Hashemai mesaprim kavod el ma'isa yadav magidar akiyah. It's not that God's handiwork is being told by the sky; it's being shown by the sky. The pasuk that teaches us about Haggadah, it teaches us v'gadta bincha bayom hahu le'mor. That's not saying we should tell our kids these things by saying. We should show them our connection. We should show them what their connection is. How do we do that? What do we end up saying to show their connection? We say, Bavurza asali Hashem b'tzikti mitzrayim. This is what Hashem did for me. It's not about telling these children, it's about showing them what your connection is. Coincidentally, this pasuk that is Vigad Levincha, and it says you should tell them what your personal experience is. That's to 2 children, the wicked son, the one who doesn't know how to ask. It's not that these labels are typifying who they are. It's typifying their behavior. All of us at times are acting these ways. And when you have children who are disruptive, excessively talking, something along those lines, something that in middle school would earn them a minor referral. So what can you do to get them on track? You are able to share something personal from something that inspired you when you were a child, that had you buy in to doing the things that connect you to the Seder. So I would say the tip that I would share is, when you are ready for those, when you see these children who really are not on the board with you, you should have some stories prepared for them. Stories that got you connected to the Pesach story, stories that got you to buy in to the entire theme of the night. So when you see that they don't have meaning, you're able to immediately infuse them with some meaning by telling them what it was that got you what got you inspired when you were a child. Chag Sameach.
Yasher Koach, Scott. Beautiful thought and beautiful deep meaning. I now want to introduce Mora Shani Payson, who's helping me here navigate tonight's program, who's going to spotlight herself. Mora Shani is an outstanding 4th grade Mora on our team, and she's going to share with us a thought about the 4 sons.
Okay, so thank you, Rabbi Scott. You created a great segue for me to talk about the 4 sons, the 4 children of the Haggadah that we know, the Chacham, the wise one, the Rasha, wicked, the Tam, the simple one, and She'eno Yodea Lish'ol, the one who does not know to ask. So first of all, I would say that these are really fluid categories. People change throughout their life. And also, I mean, if you have a teenager, they could change throughout the course of the Seder. Start off with the very happy, ready to participate child who turns surly at the tip of a hat and then sits there like a tom, not going to talk to you for the rest of the Seder. We could be dealing with the same child and all 4 of the sons. So the Haggadah tells us that we give a different answer to each of the 4 children. And this is basically the idea of differentiating. We have a different approach for each child. So with my children, I'd like to be very creative during the Seder. We like to come up with imaginative questions like, okay, so let's say we were in Mitzrayim and we had to have a sheep tied to someone's bed. Who wants the sheep next to their bed? And you're dragging the hay and you're cleaning it every day. We talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim, like, okay, we're going to keep you up all night and then you're going to pack. You have to be able to carry everything. I'm going to be carrying the baby. You have to be taking your own stuff. What are you going to get from here? You can't take everything. And then we're walking. We're going to walk for a long time. So take a nap earlier in the day so you can stay up for the whole thing, like we tell our kids during the actual Seder. So realizing your own child and knowing what their unique talents are, we can bring that out during the Seder. If you have an artistic child, even, Erev Pesach, they can create something that everyone can enjoy and appreciate. Some people have amazing ideas for like table decorations. That's not my forte, but if that's your child, then appeal to them for that. Scott was talking about kids asking questions, or Lenzer was talking about encouraging the question. So you have a critical thinker. So during the Haggadah, you read, the part about korbanot. Maybe you have a kid who wants to talk about animal sacrifice and why this is okay. And we can accept that and approach that and tackle that. Like, let each child be who they are and approach them in their way. The other thing, the final thing that I want to say about the Seder for kids is that it really helps in my family that I can set like a schedule for the kids. I know the Seder is really unscheduled. I know we say Seder, but it really starts at whatever time because you can't find the whole matzahs and where's my bottle of wine and oh my gosh, I forgot to prepare this. And it ends at nobody knows what time. So for little kids, that's hard to deal with. So, I mean, the Kadesh, okay, they'll probably sit and be excited. Orchatz, Shor, Karpas, once you get to Magid, you're gonna lose them. So I like to, again, approach each kid on their level. So if I have a reader who's confident to sit at the table, wants to prove themselves, fine, they're going to sit and they're going to read the whole Haggadah with us. Maybe somebody who, a younger child, maybe a 4th grader, can read a little bit. So I say, okay, this is the important paragraph on this page, or read these 3 lines. Of course, everyone has to read Pesach, Matzah, Umar, don't let them forget that. But if you have a little kid who can't do any of the reading and they're not going to appreciate Uncle so-and-so talking for 15 minutes, so say, okay, we have 15 minutes now. This is a great time for you to go and read a book on the couch, or take out the new Pesach game that we bought and start playing it, play around. Or, okay, you can, take a break and come back for the second cup. So this way the kids have an expectation. They understand what the Seder is going to look like, and they know that their breaks are coming and they understand what's happening. Because if they're sitting there with the Haggadah for an hour and a half, they're probably not going to be so happy. They'll get antsy, and it's just better for everyone all around if everyone is given the opportunity to do what they can by the Seder. And for the little one, if that means being in the living room for half an hour, so be it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Mora Shani. That was really, really that was very inspiring. I want to now, it gives me pleasure to introduce Mrs. Tamar Friedman. Mrs. Friedman, as everyone on this call knows, is our Director of Judaic Studies and the one who's really made it her life's work to talking about passing on the Masorah to our children. That's been Mrs. Friedman's life's work at Hillel Torah, is making sure that our children know the Lashon Kodesh, the Hebrew language, have skills in Torah learning, and most importantly, love Torah and love Tefillah, and really feel such a close connection to their Judaism. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mrs. Friedman to share a thought about Vihi She'amda.
Good evening, everybody. My husband's standing right behind me. That's a lot. Wow, I'm so impressed with all the ideas that I've heard here tonight. So practical, some of them, and so philosophical, some of them. It brings you into the flavor of Pesach for you, your family, and your children. I recently listened to a TED Talk by a brilliant young woman. Her name is Priya Parker. She's the author of a book that's called The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters. Her work focuses on how we create meaningful connections in our gatherings. Every gathering, she says, is a potential to uncover, to discover something about yourself and something about the other participants. A successful gathering is when we embrace a specific, debatable purpose. We create and cause good controversy. We ignite a fire. We add some drama. We had a friendly competition, and we build a desire to identify relevance to that purpose. Good controversy is when you get people to play both sides of the story, cause the participant to rally behind one aspect of your purpose. And we do that by using and telling stories of what helped the people who preceded us towards that purpose. And when the purpose is repeated in multiple gatherings, rather than losing steam or interest, she suggests creating new pop-up rules, just like Shani just described. One-time only rules for specific occasion. Creating temporary rules helps you change the dynamics and sort of harmonize without creating conflict and without it feeling like the same old, same old. I thought that some of her wise ideas and tools for creating meaningful gatherings can surely be validated by the ways we strive to conduct our seders. The first night and then the second night, a repeat performance in our second seder. We invent activities and games and competitions and tricks. Matchil b'gnut to mesayem b'shevach. We debate the negative versus the positive in the Pesach story. We focus on ceremonies, on traditions that involve action and doing and eating. All that to make our family gathering more relevant, more fresh, alive, and at the same time, to rely on the stories of our forefathers to pass the purpose from generation to generation. Rabbi Linzer quoted the Daf Yomi of yesterday, Kuf Tetvav, and I wanted to also quote from the Daf Yomi from last week, from Masechet Pesachim Daf Kuf Tet. It's from Perek Arvei Pesachim, which is the last Perek in the Masechet, which, by the way, our 8th graders are now studying. And on Daf Kuf Tet, the Talmud says, אמרו עליו על רבי עקיבא, שהיה מחלק כליות ואגוזים לתינוקות בערב פסח, כדי שלא ישנו וישאלו. Similar to the Gemara that Rabbi Linzer quoted, the story about our favorite Chacham, Rabbi Akiva, that used to walk around Erev Pesach and give out to children klayot ve'eguzim, roasted and sweetened nuts, which was like probably the junk food of those days, the nash, okay? And why did he do that throughout Erev Pesach and the Seder? Kedei shelo yishnu, so they don't fall asleep. Ve'ishalu, and they be interested, be participatory, ask questions, show curiosity. And also Rabbi Eliezer says something very interesting, which I think is like the only time in the Talmud. He says, "Chotfim matzot beleilei pesachim bishvil tinokot shelo yishnu." Chotfim matzot means you grab, you snatch, you steal the afikomen. This is, I think, the main source of in the Talmud to our custom today to steal the afikomen. The whole thing of stealing the afikomen is for one purpose only, to keep the children interested and involved. So we create this game, we create this competition, and we want the Seder to be alive till the end. So it seems from this Gemara and from what Rabbi Linzer quoted, that from time immemorial, from the time of the Talmud, which was written about 1500 years ago, there was a great desire to create relevance, not just for the adult members of the family, but specifically to involve and include our youngest children in the Chavaya of Pesach, to include them in the Seder, and to do everything in our power to keep the children alert and interested, to fulfill the Torah mitzvah of Haggadah lebincha. Specifically, you have an obligation to teach your child during the Pesach Seder. Even in school, as I walk from class to class, or I plan with teachers, or I listen to their lively discussion on our WhatsApp group, there is such a high level of motivation and desire to impress upon the children the deep meaning of the lessons of Pesach, which is the story of the beginning of our history as a nation, and to create strong ties and connection into our Jewish identity. It's so heartwarming for me to see the kids so involved in the Pesach learning. It brings tears to my eyes. It's like my favorite time of the year to walk around the classrooms. I see how they're writing carefully in their beautiful, clean Haggadot, protecting them from chametz, decorating them, preparing Seder projects with such enthusiasm, such care. There's a great flurry of planning, idea sharing among teachers to create activities that will do just that. Wake up our student curiosity, tap into their Jewish memory. Just today, for example, 3rd and 4th grade students participated with hundreds of day school students around the world in a world Seder from Israel to the United States, to the Czech Republic, England, South Africa, and even Uganda. How fascinating they were to visit the pyramids in Egypt and to share ideas with children worldwide. We say, Chayav Adam lirot et atzmo keilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. It's our obligation to see ourselves as we ourselves came out of Mitzrayim. We are working with your children and grandchildren to hold a mirror to their faces so they see themselves framed as part of the people that emerged from bondage to freedom. And they are coming home to you next week with all that potential, all that knowledge, all that built up enthusiasm to liven up your Seder. Why, I ask myself, why, as I watch all of us, teachers, parents, grandparents, strive to make our Pesach gatherings more meaningful, more authentic? Why was the story of Pesach picked as the central holiday, the main family gathering, the foremost mitzvah whose fulfillment relies on us, involving the youngest of our generation? Why do we strive to immerse our children into the wee hours of the Seder night? Perhaps it's because Pesach is the story of our birth, our infancy, our childhood as a nation. And who, if not our own infant, our own children, should carry that story, the history of when we came to be the Jewish nation? And that message, which is transmitted midor ledor, as everybody said before me, comes to an emotional climax as we gather together as a family to sing V'hi she'amda lavotenu velanu. This is V'hi she'amda. This is what stood the test of time and helped keep our psachim and starim fresh and relevant and vibrant. This, what is this? What is this? What's V'hi? There's so many perushim and discussions about the V'hi. What's this? Some say it's the Torah, others interpret it as the promise, the haftacha. And may I humbly add, V'hi she'amda, the Mesorah of our past, and the tikva, the hope for our future. Even in the face of immense challenges throughout history, and today, wars, exile, Shoah, pandemic, it's the burning desire to pass on the fire from generation to generation to the next generation that will help us make this Seder a meaningful, sweet memory for our Jewish children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Friedman. It's such a beautiful, I had chills, such a beautiful, beautiful thought. It gives me great privilege to introduce now Rabbi Wogel. Rabbi Wogel is just joined our administrative team this past year. He's been an amazing addition to our school and to our community, bringing so much insight and so much care and concern for each child. And Rabbi Wogel is also a Talmid Chacham. He's someone who really has deep Torah knowledge to share. And I'm excited to introduce Rabbi Wogel to share a thought about Arami Oved Avi. Mute, you're on mute.
It wouldn't be a Zoom conference without at least one person being on mute. Thank you, Rabbi Linzer, and thank you everybody else who's been helping to prep for my Seder tonight. I threw my grandmother out the window, a towel, is a phrase that actually works in Yiddish, but if we translate it into English, it sort of sounds a little weird. It's kind of fun that we can play with translations sometimes to create different meanings. And the phrase Arami Oved Avi, which is a key point of the Seder, actually, we're going to play around with the translation of that phrase tonight and try to interpret it two different ways so that we can try to see what happens if we look at multiple perspectives at the same time. Now, what's interesting about Hebrew in general is that Hebrew can be read in two ways. It can be read subject-verb, the same way that we do in English, but it can also be read verb-subject. So I brought my my visual teaching tools here. And in the same way that we're used to looking at pictures, these are some famous dualities, right? You can look within this picture here. Some of us might look at it first and see two faces staring at each other. But if you look at the white part, you would notice that there's a vase or a glass or something. This is one of the famous ones. If you look sort of here this way, then it looks more like a duck. But if you look this way, then you could see it looks more like a rabbit, with this being the duck's beak or being the ears of the bunny, right? And this would be the mouth there. And this is another famous one that if you look, it's either an old woman or a young lady. Our eyes are sort of trained to see one over the other. So if you weren't able to see both pictures at this time, that's okay, because it means that you're used to seeing things in one perspective. What we want to do with Arami Oved Avi is look at two of the ways that we can parse this. Either we can say Arami, an Aramean, Oved Avi, destroyed my father, or depending on how you translate it, tried to destroy my father. The second one would be Arami Oved, a lost Aramean or a wandering Aramean, Avi, was my father. So if we look, Rashi and Rashbam have this exact debate, and it ends up looking out like this. Either we say the Arami therefore must have been Avraham. So Avraham was the lost Aramean, right? Avi, my father. Or, according to Rashi, an Arami tried to destroy my father, in which case the Avi is not Avraham, but rather Yaakov. And so what ends up happening is we have Rashi's reading, which is an Aramean tried to destroy my father. And then Rashbam's, which is my father was a wandering Aramean. So this actually sets us up for a great tension, or rather we have conflict in both of these readings. I'm going to start with Rashi's reading, that if an Aramean was tried to be destroyed, how do you overcome that? What's the end of the resolution of the story is to not get destroyed, or what we would say instead, to persevere or to survive. So according to Rashi's version of the story, we know that we were successful because we are having a Seder this year. We might even say we're having a Seder next year, L'shana haba. So at the end of the Seder, we actually actualize this phrase, Arami Oved Avi, according to Rashi, by saying Lashana Haba'ah, next year, B'Yerushalayim. Now, the flip of this is according to Rashbam, where he says, my father was a wandering Aramean. So this different reading here says, well, how do you resolve a situation where somebody is lost or wandering? The answer is settle down, give them a homeland. So at the end of the Seder, when we say, where is it? B'Yerushalayim, in Eretz HaKodesh, settling in the land of Israel. So what ends up happening actually is the resolution, according to Rashbam, comes from the phrase, L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim. So the two of them started with the same phrase, Arami Oved Avi, and they end with the same phrase, L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim. And if we look at, I made a little chart here for anybody who wants to see visually, but the idea is, Oved, this destruction is a problem. How does it get resolved? If you believe that the Oved is translated as being destroyed, then you resolve it or fix it by persevering, by surviving, by existing for the future. Which means that according to Rashi, the focus of the Seder, one of the focuses of the telling of the story is on the people, the Am of Yisrael. Whereas according to Rashbam, who talked about Avraham being a wandering, lost wanderer, then the emphasis is actually on the land of Israel. And so by taking this phrase and by taking these parallel readings, the same phrase can actually be interpreted two different ways. And then we use the same text in the conclusion to continue those same multiple interpretations. Now, how does this look actually in practice? A few years ago, I was confronted with a tension, which is, how do I make my Seder kid-friendly while also not making it boring for adults? And a lot of the emphasis that we have is on involving the kids, and we've heard some wonderful ideas tonight about how to do it. But again, we also heard the idea that the Seder is for everybody. So in our house, we have a tradition where we put random items. Here's a sunflower. Here's some Lego or Duplo building blocks. I forgot what they're called. Maybe a soccer cone. Random things like that. Here, a baby Margaret. And we scatter these around the Seder table. And sometimes if you want to be, assign people, you can say, this is your object, or you can just put them scattered out and let everybody pick up the object. And the idea is, at any point in the telling of the story, if you see an object on the table that helps to enhance the telling of the story, then by all means, use it and bring it up, and that's your moment to shine. And that helps us to personalize the story, also internalizing the concepts and the messages. And it can lead to some really fascinating discussion, because you could look at a baby doll like this and say, this is it reminds me of baby Moshe in the Teva. And I guess they disguised him like a girl. We want to make up our own midrash now all of a sudden, right? So that he wouldn't get found. I don't know. I actually asked my son, he saw me preparing for this, and he said, Abba, why do you have these blocks here? And I said, why do you think I have them? They're for Pesach. And he said, meaning I'm thinking he's going to come up with the idea of bricks, right? Because like Bnei Israel building the pyramids, and this would be our way of big Tetris or something, I don't know. And what he said is, it looks like a pointer. And I said, so where would there be a pointer in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim? And he said, well, maybe like Hashem had to point them where to go. And I thought for this moment, my goodness, right? It's like the Yad Chazakah. He didn't have the language for it at age 5, but he had a much deeper interpretation than I did. And we looked at the same blocks. So as we're going through, the Haggadah is the same for all of us. The words are the same for all of us. But what we do with those words is really how we create meaning for ourselves and for those around us. So I gave the example of Arami Oved Avi. If you'd like the notes later or the chart to be able to have, if you didn't take a screenshot, then I'm happy to share that later. But otherwise, please feel free to try different things and look at the same object that we're used to looking at year after year after year with a slightly new lens, and perhaps that can open up new worlds of understanding for us as well. Chag Sameach.
Shakoach, Rabbi Wogel, beautiful thought. And another little takeoff on that is the idea of like a paper bag dramatics. You could put all kinds of random toys or things in a bag, and everyone has to pick something out and has to find a way to connect it. And that's exactly, as Rabbi Wogel said, could be great for kids as well as for adults. And you could also do it at a different meal. It doesn't have to be at the Seder, because sometimes, there's a limit how many things you could fit into the Seder, but at lunchtime, you could play that game as well. And how does this connect to the story? It gives me great pleasure now to introduce Mora Mindy Reese. Mora Mindy Reese is an outstanding Mora. She's currently teaching our first graders. It's where they're just learning to read Hebrew, where Mora Mindy's actually teaching them to read Hebrew, to teach them how to read the Haggadah, not just memorize it like they used to, but actually read it, opening up the whole world of Torah study for our our youngest readers, I should say, our Hebrew readers. And Mora Mindy is a tremendous Torah scholar herself. And please give your attention. She's going to share a thought about the 10 Makot.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rabbi Linzer. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. Baruch Hashem. Okay, I'm going to invite you to my Seder during the Eser Makot, but it's evolved over the years. So the idea is that everybody is going to be doing this on their own children's level. I'm going to show you sort of how it started, but just before I do, I just want to mention a couple things, taking off from what previous speakers have mentioned. So my presentation, it's a lot of props, and I want to show you some practical ways where you can get your kids involved. So the Rav Soloveitchik was very famous for saying "Ein kedusha b'li hachana," right? There's no kedusha, holiness, without preparation. So in order to make the Seder the best, most interactive, and best for you, best for us, the parents and the kids, is to prepare in advance. And I'm going to help you prepare. And a couple of pieces of advice that I wish that people had for me when my kids were little is, number one, make sure they are well fed. Give them a really good lunch before, a late lunch, because this way they won't be hungry and cranky at the table. And number two, make sure, if possible, that you are well rested. That will really go a long way in helping you. And if possible, I mean, you have it tonight, but having a bit of a spiritual uplift for yourself. And I have some, if you email me later, I will share some of these ideas with you if you forget them, or if you want specifics, and also some amazing, easy resources on the internet for some extra ideas and spiritual uplift. And then the third thing is to give the kids jobs in advance, to give everybody a job, or to have a meeting with everybody in advance and discuss what they would like their job to be. So I'm doing Eser Makot, but this is a good example for any part of the Seder. So for the Eser Makot in my family, we always give everybody a job. Each kid is, or adult, anybody at the table is going to be in charge of a certain Makah. Okay, or if there's not enough people to cover all of them, then people will take more than one. So because it's evolved over time and the kids have gotten older, so some of them involve aspects that relate to higher levels of learning. So when they're very little, it might just be something that shows what the Makkah is, but it could also show the Midah Keneged Midah aspect, or different levels. So for example, when we get to Dam, so the person who's in charge of Dam, I mean, we've done different things over the years. One of the things we've done is we have ice cubes. Everybody gets an ice cube with one of these little fishies in it. You can get them at Oriental Trading, and the little fish are dead in the little, the ice cubes are not regular ice cubes. They're made out of cranberry juice because they're red, and the little fish inside shows that they're dead. So the person who's in charge of Dam goes around and says, Ivri Mitzri, that all the Ivrim, whoever they choose as an Ivri, gets a clear glass. Whoever is a Mitzri gets a red glass. And then they pour the water the dam. And if they're a Mitzri, they're getting dam. And if they're an Ivri, they're getting mayim. So you have to know your kids, because I have one kid who was terrified of this, and it was really a bad idea for them. Chanoch lenar al pi darko, I learned the hard way. So maybe if they're young and sensitive, maybe it's not the best, because he really thought it was dumb and it was really scary. They thought it was blood somehow. I thought my kids were really smart, but you know, it's their level. So you have to gauge it, or maybe prepare them in advance. Oh, look, this is really mine, but we're going to pretend that it's blood. I didn't do that in advance. So again, you have to know your kids of what to prepare them in advance. When we get to Tzfardea, so we do a lot of things, and I think that it's a lot of people throw frogs all around, but it's nice to shake it up a little bit. There's all kinds of frog things. You can get a frog pillow. It's like, I have frogs on my pillow. And we have, from the idea of, because it's called Tzfardea, not Tzfardeim, right? That the midrash that they used, they had one giant frog. We have two. Things have evolved in my house over the years. Giant frog. And then when they hit it, oh, you can't see the frog, sorry. Okay, when they hit the frog, like a lot pop out. Okay, because just like in Mitzrayim, when they hit the frog, more and more came out. So as they're hitting it and they're pretending to be the Mitzri, so the people who are the Mitzrim, they're gonna hit the frog and more are gonna come out. Okay, and the person goes around and it gets in everybody's drinks and it gets on the Seder plate, and that's okay, and it stays there the whole time because it's just fun and it's a way to interact. When they do kinim, I'll go a little faster. We also have one of our saltwater bowls has a frog in it, just to try to find as many props, as many things as you can. Amazon probably has a lot of stuff. The person who's in charge of kinim goes around and gives everyone back scratchers, because they have to scratch themselves because they're so itchy from all that kinim. And we also have those little flies somewhere that they also put around. It depends. Each night we do something different. It's not usually the exact same. Okay. We also found a bunch of, okay. For Arov, we've done lots of different things. Now our bag is dwindling because every year we give out stuff, and then, you know, we don't save it for Pesach usually. So this is some leftovers. One year we gave out the little monkey games, because showing the different kinds of Arov. There's all different kinds of wild animals. We use the snakes that turn into, you know, those ones that turn to sticks. They're like, they go very straight, but we use that for the other part too with the otzot. And we have a lot of wild animals, wild animal masks. You could even make wild animal masks, or have the kids make wild animal masks. We've given out wild animal plates. There's these balls, wild animal balls, anything that will involve the kids, anything that will get them to really enjoy it and have fun with it. And my son last year gave out different things that are the Gemara's different interpretations of Arov. I always thought it was just wild animals, but apparently there's a bunch of different interpretations of which wild animals it is. So as they get older, they become more involved and they start presenting the makot. So for Dever, I just got a bunch of these stuffed animals that are different domestic animals, and we just like have them like dead on the table. Or we also found this really cute, I can't find it right now, but these cows that are slime, and kids love slime. I don't know if you want it at your table, but you open it and the slime comes out and it really looks like it could possibly be like a sick cow. So it's really cute. Okay. And then for Shteen, the person in charge of Shteen dresses up as a Hatzalah guy and goes around to take care of all the people with their boils, with their Shteen, however they put this on. Okay, whatever. And they go around and they give out Band-Aids. Everybody gets a Band-Aid. Or they've also done with marshmallows or different, we have these little pop-up balls, you know, that you squeeze and they come out of the little net and they look like boils. So there's all sorts of things you can do, and you can even ask the kids, what do you think we could do in order to show these different things? Barad, so for Barad, I looked very hard for this one year, I found these clear plastic balls that open. They were like an ornament or something. And I made these little, out of paper, I just made these orange and yellow flames and I put them inside. And I just overheard somebody they put, oh, I think it was Sharon Richter. They put in the ice cubes, in regular ice cubes, not the cranberry ones. They put mandarin oranges. So they show the fire in the ice. It's very cute. And we also found these online, which look like they could be fire and ice together. And we just like throw them at them on the table. And for Arbe, we found these little locusts and look like cockroachy looking things. And they're really ugly and they're really yucky. And we have a whole bunch of small ones also, and they go all over the table. It's my least favorite part because they look very realistic and it's scary. And then we have our bet Choshech. For Choshech, it's not super creative, but every year we give everybody different kinds of sunglasses. So everybody's walking around with the sunglasses, and the younger kids, they will notice these things and they'll say, oh, why are you all wearing sunglasses? And you could say things like, you know, sometimes you see people in the street with a stick, that's a stick and sunglasses because they can't see, they're blind. And the Mitzrayim were blind in Choshech, they couldn't see at all. And it was so thick, they couldn't even move. You could have the kids acting out that they couldn't move. And then for Makat Bechorot, every year, my oldest son just, you know, passes out, pretends he's not drunk or anything. He just lies on the floor and pretends. But so these are just some ways of getting the kids to be interactive. I also wanted to mention, not related to the Makot, but we have, somebody was talking before, Mrs. Friedman was talking about getting the kids interested, keeping them interested. And so we give out, in the beginning, we give out a bunch of bricks to the kids. So when they are bored, if it's like a lot of Divrei Torah by older kids, they could sit and build and pretend they're avadim, and they can build things. Or we have these bingo boards that I think one of my kids' teachers once made, that when they get to a certain part of the Seder, they can put their chip on it, they can find it, and whoever gets bingo first gets a prize. There's a lot of different ways that we can engage the kids on their level, and each year it will get more complicated. But if you yourself are learning either buying new Haggadah or looking up new inspirational Divrei Torah, then you can share them with them in advance, and you can help them, or you can, as they get older, they'll probably help you. But I hope these are some ideas that will help engage the kids, and everybody will get more excited about it.
Thank you so much, Maura Mindy. That was so amazing and creative, and you really gave us so many ideas. And I hope everyone will take away from tonight a bunch of new ideas to renew and to make our Seder exciting and new, especially after last year's Seder, which may have been a little challenging at the beginning of the pandemic. This year, it's really a challenge for all of us to make our Seder as special as can be. We're so privileged at Hillel Torah to have, as you heard tonight, a sampling, and we have one more presenter in a moment who I'm going to introduce. And I want to really just acknowledge we're so privileged to have such an outstanding faculty and such outstanding Torah teachers, Rebbeim and Morot. As you could see tonight, such a range of styles, personalities, and strengths. And the amazing thing is how everyone works as a team towards this common mission of really educating our children, educating our students towards, as we spoke about, towards continuing our beautiful Mesorah and continuing to build on it. And as we saw tonight, also, everyone is sharing a little bit of their personal life, a little window. Not only is the Zoom from everyone's home, but also sharing a little bit how their family celebrates and does things. And it's helping us connect with each other on a more personal level. Our final presenter this evening is one of our outstanding Rebbeim, Rabbi Aaron Liebtag. Rabbi Liebtag is a Rav of KJBS in Lincolnwood, and he's also our middle school Rebbe for many years. He's our mechanech, he's our 8th grade advisor. Our students get very attached to Rabbi Liebtag and keep up with him for many, many years into the future, and his impact really continues for many years beyond that the children are actually sitting in the room, sitting in the class. And Rabbi Liebtag, it's an honor to have you joining us tonight for the Haggadah program. And for our final Dvar Torah, our final thought, please give your attention to Rabbi Liebtag.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I did hear everybody else. I'm sorry, I'm at my shul in the middle of Haggadas Kalim, so I was listening to everyone, but now the video is officially on. I know it's late, so I just want to share one theme. there is an amazing story told about Rav Shach. Rav Shach was one of the great Gedolei Hador, the great rabbis and leaders of the generation in the 1900s, passed away about 25 years ago. Story is told that when he was a little bit older, he tells his grandson to pick him up, take me to a levaya, a funeral. His grandson says, Zaidi, it's late, you're tired, it's raining, it's not smart. He goes, either you take me or I'm going to go by myself. Okay? So his grandson picks him up, takes him to this levaya that he thought would be packed with people. His grandfather was one of the great leaders. Together, there's barely a minyan, barely 10 people at the funeral. Rav Shach gets out, he goes to the funeral, he speaks, and he's about to walk back into his car. He waits as the rain pours down upon him. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, he gets in the car. And now his grandson's like, all right, Zaidi, like, what's going on? Today, I said how gifted we are to be able to learn Torah every day in a day school. But back then in the early 1900s, either you can make it or you couldn't. And by 11 or 12 years old, if you couldn't hack the yeshiva life, you were done. And that wasn't an easy life, sleeping in the shul, barely getting food. And he was about 12, 13 years old, and he was trying this yeshiva life, and he says, I can't do it anymore. It was the middle of the winter in Europe. He's like, I'm done, I'm finished. And he says, after Shabbos, I'm gonna make my way to my uncle. He has a store, I'll work for him. And that Friday afternoon, a woman came by and she donated blankets and coats that were from her late husband. And he said, that was the first time in months that I had a warm sleep. And he says, if I can make it through this winter, I'll give it another try. And the rest is history. He becomes the great Rav Shach. So his grandson says, Zaidi, it's a beautiful story. Why'd you stay in the rain for 10 minutes? He goes, because I wanted to remember how cold I was, how freezing I was when I was that child back in Europe. And only then could I truly be makir tov to this woman whose the funeral I was just at. It was her funeral. He stayed in touch with her. She had passed away, and to be makir tov and to remember it, he wanted to feel how cold he was. One of the major themes, if not the major theme of the Seder, is hakaras hatov. Hakaras hatov does not mean thank you. It means to recognize the good that God does for us. That is why we relive the story on Pesach night, as Rabbi Linda said earlier, Sipor versus Zechira. We retell it so we can appreciate it. This theme runs throughout the Seder. I encourage you. There's a lot of already amazing suggestions. I can't really add on more. And I tell you a secret. I told my students today, you can also share a Dvar Torah at lunch. I'm telling you, it has the same effect, and it's also good. And the whole Seder is about Hakaras HaTov. Rabbi Rimon in his beautiful Haggadah says on the Karpas, I have a little bit of celery and I'm already thanking God. The mitzvah of Sipor, of telling the story, is about thanking Hashem. Dayenu is about, every line in Dayenu is that was enough for me to say thank you to Hashem. And in fact, Rabbi Nachman Cohen in his beautiful historical Haggadah points out that every line in Dayenu is a moment where the Jews in history forgot to say thank you. And we rectify that on the Seder night. Arami Oved Avi, as Rabbi Wogel talked about, that theme, those psukim come from Bikurim, which is about thanking Hashem. The Baal Haggadah, the person who made the Haggadah, chose those psukim, have nothing to do with Pesach, because that is the text in the Seder and the text in the Torah for Hakaras HaTov, for thanking Hashem. There's this wonderful thing you could do called a gratitude journal. It's a diary of things that you are grateful for. And you're supposed to write a few things a day. Research has shown that those that are more grateful are better off in their lives, healthier, happier, more satisfied. Pesach night is our night for a gratitude journal. Go around the table. What are you thankful for? And don't give me the general stuff. Give me something specific. We spent a year in which we learned about what does it mean to be essential? What does it mean to really give thanks to the people that mean the most to us? So take that as the theme of the Seder. Find Hakaras HaTov throughout the Seder and use it around your table, on a lunch, on a meal, on a dinner. What are we thankful for? What are we grateful for? And what do we want to be makir tov to Hashem for? Thank you very much. Wish everybody a Chag kosher v'sameach.
Shekach, Rabbi Liebtag, beautiful, beautiful thought. And the older, the parents, the grandparents could model the gratitude, as Rabbi Liebtag saying, for the children. Tell a story of someone in your life, like the Rav Shach story, someone in your life that you're grateful to that had an impact on your life. And by modeling that for our children, they could learn this idea of gratitude and take it into their personal lives and connect it with Hashem. So really, thank you all for joining us. A huge thank you to Rav Natan, joining us from Florida. We're so excited to have you join our community next year. To Rabbi Scott, to Maura Shaney, to Mrs. Friedman, to Rabbi Wogel, to Maura Mindy, and finally to Rabbi Liebtag for beautiful ideas, insightful, entertaining, and practical. And thank you all to the parents and grandparents who joined us, wishing everyone a wonderful Yom Tov, a healthy, happy Chag Kasher V'Sameach.
And thank you, Rabbi Linzer.
Thank you.